Welcome to the Clause YouTube channel.
Together, we strive for a safer, secure, and more stable world.
Hello and good evening to another podcast from the Center for Land Warfare Studies. You're on the official YouTube channel Strategic Frontlines of Clause. And today we are back with another very topical and a topic which has gripped the country and the region, which is very important. What we are talking about today is Muttaqi's visit to Afghanistan. But not just that, let's take it a step further and look at what has happened ever since. So before we get to it, there's a lot that is happening in our neighborhood. There's a lot that's happening in our region and reactions that have come in from other regional actors as well. Before we go there, it is my honor to absolutely introduce a great panel that we have with us today. Dr. Ashok Behuria, once again, who is a senior fellow and coordinator at the South Asia Center of MP-IDSA, a very renowned person, a recipient of the K. Subramaniam Award as well, and an absolute expert on Pakistan, Afghanistan, and radicalization and religious rhetorics in the region. We also have with us today Ms. Nayanima Basu, who is an independent journalist and an author of The Fall of Kabul, Dispatches from Chaos. That is her first-hand account from 2021 in Kabul, where she was reporting from on the ground, and she's seen it firsthand. And on a personal note, I've ordered that book and I'm so very excited to read it, ma'am, and I will get back to you about how it is, but I'm looking forward to that. We also have with us Dr. Kartha, Director of Research and Academics here at Clause, who was earlier with the National Security Council Secretariat for 18 years and yet again is an absolute authority on counterterrorism and South Asian security dynamics. Before we get to it, we just mentioned that we are going to be talking about Afghanistan's acting foreign minister Amir Khan Muttaqi's visit to India, which is the first of its kind ever since 2021 August, where Taliban took over Afghanistan. But not just that, we have a lot of other geopolitical developments that have been happening in the region ever since. We know that around the same time when Muttaqi was in India, there were concurrent fights and wars that were happening with our neighbors. We know the fact that in early October, our neighbors Pakistan and Afghanistan had a brief but very intense war that took place on the Durand line. We know that there were massive casualties that happened on both sides. A lot of artillery and ammunition and all of that was mobilized and was directed towards the Durand line. We actually Clause has another podcast on this very same topic sometime week. While all of this is happening, we know of the ceasefire deal that was brokered between these two warring countries by Turkey and Qatar. We have a lot of reactions that have come in from West Asian countries as well, applauding the ceasefire deal that has happened between the two countries. While all of this is happening, the Muttaqi visit in India gave us big headlines. They gave us controversies of press conferences happening. They gave us visits of historical and civilizational ties that were mentioned. It also gave us a lot of scope for engagement, I would say, between the two countries. And that is exactly what we are here to deconstruct today. The object of today's podcast is basically to see what now and what next. We know what has happened with the visit of Muttaqi. We know we've read the joint statement. We've seen his speeches and press conferences and all of that. But what next is what we are talking about with all of these geopolitical developments that are happening with Afghanistan and Pakistan also. This is a report as of today morning, if I am not wrong, wherein the supreme leader of the Taliban has said that we are now going to be building a dam on River Kunar. And this, a couple of people are saying, is a nod towards how India held the IWT in abeyance after the horrific Pahalgam terror attacks. So many things are happening, and the object here, and I won't take up much of your time, is basically to see where India fits in here, what should our next responses be, and how we're looking at this basically. For that, I think over to Dr. Tara Kartha.
Thank you, Akashika, for that wrap-up. So basically what we are looking at is what now? I mean, Muttaqi's Amir Muttaqi's visit and the headlines and the, sorry. Can you unmute me? Can you hear me?
I'm not getting.
It's not coming, is it? There's no.
I'm not getting. I'm not getting the audio at all.
Okay, because I'm fine here. Aishwarya, can you just check?
not getting the
Nayanima,
audio.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Dr. Kartha, loud and clear.
Ashok, I think it's in your end. Okay, can you just, meanwhile, as you check, we'll just go on with this. The, the fact is that we've had now the next phase of, well, like Akashika said, where do we go from here? There was a lot of applause and headlines, and most amount of course, the controversy was about the women not being allowed into the press conference, which included Nayanima was there. I know finally when the Taliban held a press conference. See, the question is now there is after that horrific fight between these two people, and the fact that the Pakistanis chose to attack on the very same day that Muttaqi was here, was that a coincidence or was it deliberate? Because finally, the fact remains that Pakistan, as the head of the sanctions committee, cleared the visit to India. So, also, if you remember earlier, the US did not clear the visit of Muttaqi to Pakistan. So, there are all these aspects here which is not entirely clear. There are people who say that Noor Wali Masood, tracking him, they just hit out whenever they got the opportunity. But the basic facts are that there was a massive fight between the two immediately after Muttaqi came to India and thereafter. So now that the ceasefire has been signed, the question that arises is the Taliban capable of taking on the TTP? Because if you remember, Ashok, that the UN Sanctions Committee had actually said that the Taliban are focused on the Islamic State Khorasan. They're doing a lot of work, action against them. In fact, recently, Sirajuddin Haqqani, as Interior Minister, he said that we are lifting all the barriers, we are letting people in because the ISK threat, P threat has reduced, which means they've done a pretty thorough job. But the sanctions committee also said they don't have a lot of capability against the Tehrik-e-Taliban because they all fought together, right? They were all in the same place. They got launched from the same place. They all are from that cauldron of the Afghan jihad. So going forward, we have, how do you see this ceasefire playing out? Is it going to hold? Because basic differences have not been sorted. It still remains. Is the Taliban capable of holding back the TTP? How do you see this going forward, Ashok?
Right, Taliban and TTP, they are caught out of the same cloth. So there is a lot of ideological similarity between the two, the ideological convergence between the two, and they actually want to do in Pakistan what exactly Taliban did in Afghanistan. So they want to turn Pakistan into a Taliban-controlled Pakistan. So and not only that, these people, as you said, they fought together, and they fought the Americans together, and there is a lot of obligation on that count as far as Taliban are concerned towards the TTP. So it is difficult for Taliban to contain TTP, even if the Taliban top echelons of the Taliban hierarchy were to issue a diktat asking the lower ranks to take on the TTP. I doubt whether they will take on the TTP. It was exactly like the Pakistanis did. Musharraf at the helm, he wanted to crush the Taliban to please the West, but there were elements in ISI, there were elements in the army at the lower ranks who did not want it. So in that sense, the Taliban's capacity to control a TTP is limited. But having said that, let me tell you the next question that you asked me, whether ceasefire is likely to hold. I would say that it will hold for some time till the TTP Brexit. So it's not that it will not hold at all, because both the parties have declared that we caused maximum damage. The Pakistanis sent in their aircraft, they bombed certain places in inside Afghanistan, and the Taliban also they resorted to cross-border attacks. So I think that they now both the parties believe that they have uh, equaled each other as far as the assaults were concerned. So there is a pullback from the brink, and the Qataris, the Saudis, they are there now. 25th tomorrow they are going to meet in Istanbul. So there will be some pressure on them. And Trump is standing by saying that I will strike at another peace. So he has already made peace in 8 places. So this will be the ninth one. So all, if you look at it closely, I think this ceasefire will hold, but it will not be permanent in the sense that there will be occasion for TTP to strike back at the Pakistani state again. As I was telling you earlier, between January and August, they had struck 1,783 times. And they are carrying on attacks every day. Every day, Pakistani media is full of stories about one attack or another. And Pakistani strategy to contain TTP is also not succeeding at all, because they are trying to raise at local level. They're trying to raise peace jirgas. The peace jirgas are also not working. So in that sense, I would say that TTP will continue to attack. Maybe the scale will vary, but they will. So it will depend on Pakistan as to how they are responding to that. So if they respond disproportionately, then again there will be another cross-border exchange. So I think it will hold for the time, but it may not hold for all time to come.
Nayanima, I want to take your opinion since you've been on the ground in Kabul. The Taliban
Really?
themselves, they've changed a lot, right? They're not the same as they were before, probably when you were still on the ground. Well, in fact, recently I think they had a meeting where the Taliban were giving awards to people who had done very good online propaganda against Pakistan. So they've come a long way. Okay, but that doesn't mean that they have backed off on the women's issue. And I think I will flip that question to Akashika on the women's issue. How does this, Akashika, can you take that on?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. This is something that I was very interested to talk about since morning, and I know that now that Miss Basu is here, and that is something very interesting. It was landmark what happened in the two press conferences that were here. This was something that was said in the earlier podcast as well, wherein we were talking about how one without women involved, and the second one immediately it was such a beautiful sight how Indian journalists rallied and how women were part of the second press conference, right? So personally, since ma'am, you were there and you were there on ground in 2021, you were there in the room while the second press conference was happening. How does this look like? Because there have also been reports of Afghanistan news channels, local news channels, that have said that women organizations in Afghanistan have actually applauded what happened here in India, and they are saying that Indian women taking a stance speaks a lot for us as well. So just your comments regarding how does this connect look like? Is this simply something symbolic, one off that just happened here, or how do we make it better? How do we take it forward now that something this big has happened here, and definitely landmark?
Oh, well, firstly, thank you for having me on this exciting show. And thank you, Dr. Kartha, for giving me the platform. But, well, coming to the second press conference, I would say that was the real press conference that had happened, where not just women were included, but also male journalists. And that's what we had ensured that, second day when they kind of invited us, we said that we will stage a walkout if you don't allow the male journalists, right? And it has to be a proper press conference if you're addressing the Indian press, and you need to take all the difficult questions. Now, well, we can, it's high, we've all seen what Mr. Muttaqi had answered, and we don't believe what he said. But end of the day, what I appreciated in the fact in that press conference is that he took all the questions from all of us, right? From women issues, from the killing of photojournalist Danish Siddiqui, and also the question that I asked him on the safety of the diplomats. Now that we are going to open the embassy, how can he ensure that there will not be a repeat of 2008 2009, right, when we lost our diplomats in terrorist attacks? So I guess that was it, and it's good to see that people have taken notice of that press conference, because You cannot allow the Taliban to run their ideology in a democratic country like India. A and B, also the fact that if they need recognition, if they want countries to recognize them, they need to also understand and adjust with other countries' ideologies. And that's very important. And I think they also understood that, which is why they did the second press conference. And I think they are now desperate for that recognition, at least from the neighbors, and also a neighbor like India, right? And so, I mean, as I have also argued before, when I was there, as you had asked, the Taliban before and the Taliban now, the only difference is this Taliban, as I had written, and in my reportage also at that time, that this is a Taliban which speaks very good English, knows how to manage the social media well, and also go after those journalists who, write against them. So they're very smart in that way. But this is, again, their ideology and their thought process all stems really from the Kandahar school, which you know better than me, Dr. Kartha. But then again, this is the same Taliban that did a peace deal with the Trump 1.0. In 2020 in Doha, Qatar, when they signed that peace deal, and the way they negotiated, the way they got the deal done, I think that was when the world should have woken up and understood that they are coming back, and coming back in a very big way. While I was there on the ground, the things that surprised me, frankly, was the fact that beyond Kabul, there was this larger acceptance and understanding that probably the Taliban is going to be our reality tomorrow, and let's just accept it. Because frankly, nobody was happy either with the Karzai government or the Ashraf Ghani government, and also with the way the Americans left them, right? So, I mean, there is a dichotomy there, but then again, that's the reality. And people, I mean, I've engaged with people in Mazar-e-Sharif and all, went all the way to Jalalabad. I could not reach there, of course, but they had massive ground support, which is why they could come back to power in such a blistering pace. So that was the reality at that point of time. Today, I guess, again, this is something that people don't like me saying, but we need to also understand the Afghans who are inside that country, those who are able to go out of Afghanistan. Yes, they're having a very, the life that they didn't want probably, but we need to also think about the Afghans who are inside that country and who look up to India with a lot of hope in terms of, not just treatment, but education, cooperation. And so I think the engagement with Taliban was very necessary in terms of establishing the goodwill that we have there, and the people-to-people linkages, which is extremely important.
Yeah, thank you, Nayanima. That's, as usual, it's a very, very, very close analysis. I tend to forget the fact that the Taliban actually negotiated that ceasefire with the US, and they did it extremely well. The assumption most of us had was they had the Pakistanis holding their hands, but then there was this whole lot who are capable of doing this kind of thing. When coming back to you, Ashok, I am still trying to figure out. I mean, the fact that the leader Haibatullah has said that we are going to build a dam on Kunar. All of them are educated from Pakistan. I don't know any Taliban leaders who were not in Afghanistan. So as of now, they are. Can we say that they are still? I mean, they will be pro-Afghanistan because they're Afghans, right? So they want their country first. But given that basic issues between Afghanistan and Pakistan remain, how does this ceasefire? I mean, the Pakistan defense minister has hinted that there are secret clauses to the agreement, and the Taliban have said there's no secret clauses, it is just what it is. We've agreed to stop and we will negotiate how to go ahead with this. So, how do you see this being, the TTP is one thing, the other is the Afghanistan as a whole. How are they going to deal with this?
You are talking about Kunar. I think that will be interesting to see how Pakistanis will respond to that, because Kabul brings about 22 to 25 million acre feet of water to the Indus, and Pakistanis are aware of it. That if Kabul stops water, then it will be it will be aggravating their water scarcity problem, in Pakistan. So it will be interesting to know how they are going to respond to that. But it appears that they are quite determined to augment their capacity and basically generate hydroelectricity as well. So in that sense, I think Taliban appears very determined, and depends how much help we can extend, on this count, because they will ask us for help, and we should not be found wanting, because we do have a capacity problem, as far as our neighborhood is concerned. But in Afghanistan, we have a strategic issue, so where we need to oblige if they ask us to oblige.
No, my
But coming to
point,
the
I will just interrupt for a minute. Sorry, I didn't make myself clear. My fault. How, do you see a difference between the Kandahar and the Kabul lobby in terms of Pakistan policy? I mean, otherwise, they have differences. I mean, there's Kandahar is far more conservative.
You see, I will say that, rather than putting it as Kandahar versus Kabul, because Kabul lobby also has a lot of Kandaharis in it. So you cannot say that there is a Kabul lobby and a Kandahar lobby. You can say there are conservatives, ultra conservatives, and there are conservatives, and there are liberals. So the ultra conservatives include the Habatullah Akhundzada and co. The conservatives would consist of about Sayyiduddin Haqqani and others. And liberals are the ones who actually carried on the conversation with the Americans in Doha. The guys who now are deputies in the ministries. Because the Kandaharis and their, I would say, cronies in the Taliban ranks, Sirajuddin Haqqani and others, they have actually milked the system well. They are the ones who are in the cabinet positions. The deputies are the liberals. So in that sense, I would say at the moment vis-a-vis Pakistan, I don't think there is a lot of difference among these three layers of Taliban that I'm talking about. In fact, the Mullah Baradar group, which are the liberal ones, they have their access to grind with Pakistan. Habatullah Akhundzade, we must remember the day he was declared to be the Amir of Taliban, he fled Pakistan, because the day before Mullah Mansur was killed in a US drone strike, which the Taliban chief and the Taliban top hierarchy believed was basically a collaboration between the Pakistanis and the Americans. And Mullah Mansur had lost his utility by then for Pakistan. And as soon as he became the Amir, he fled Pakistan. He has never come back to Pakistan since then. And he is in Afghanistan. He has been in Afghanistan. So all these groups, excepting perhaps the conservative group that I'm talking about, Haqqani group, they have their antipathy towards Pakistan. Haqqanis were sitting on the lap of ISI, so they still have some degree of empathy and sympathy towards Pakistan. But Haqqanis are in such a condition now that the liberals and the ultra-conservatives, they have come together and they constitute the majority within Taliban. And their version vis-a-vis Pakistan is the one which is actually ruling the roost at the moment. So their approach to Pakistan is something which is official Taliban's approach to Pakistan. I personally believe that Pakistanis have still some truck with the Sirajuddin Haqqani group, but Sirajuddin Haqqani is in double minds. At one level, he is nurturing the TTP. At another level, he is maintaining his links with the Pakistani deep state. So in that sense, there is some degree of, I would say, comfort for Pakistan that they could still pull off a ceasefire, and they will, if not stop TTP entirely, they will actually restrict TTP and restrain Taliban to a certain extent. So that is how I look at it. And Istanbul agreement will also reveal a lot as to how the conversations are going. But one thing I must tell you that, in last 2 3 days, I'm finding this debate in Pakistani media coming to the fore about the Durand line. Lot of talk on Durand line. Today, Ahmad Bilal Sufi, who used to be the law and justice minister in the caretaker government, he has come out with a piece where he's saying that, Durand line is done and dusted. You cannot do anything about it. It is an international line. But if you look at the voice coming from Afghanistan, they are saying that nothing like that. Durand line we do not consider a story which has been resolved. It has to be taken up with Pakistan again. So, there are issues which will keep coming up between Pakistan and Afghanistan, and they will have to resolve them. But one thing for sure, that Pakistanis are deeply disturbed, deeply troubled by the fact that the Taliban are not obliging them the way they thought they would. And not only that, what has actually riled them further is their fig leaf. They're extending a fig leaf to India. And India also, reciprocating on that score. So this is something which is actually irritating them. And every day you will find one minister or other in Pakistan coming out with statement to this effect that these people have betrayed our trust. So on that count, I would say the ceasefire that we are going to see will be of a kind that Pakistan may not be very, very happy about. But let us see how it is going.
Yeah, into all this, of course, comes the United States. I mean, you had, I think, recently the Taliban making a statement that we are good to talk to the US. We would like to engage with them. We can engage with everybody. Nayanima, how do you see this? Particularly, of course, I'll bring in the Bagram war. Is that a fact? Is it something for my side? I don't see why Trump wants Bagram at all. But then the whole US angle in this, how would you see it working out? Are they going to actually broker? Is that Pakistan's strategy to take it into such a violent level that the US steps in?
Well, in today's day and age, if you go by each and every word that President Trump speaks, it's kind of, it's only going to confuse the mind more than what they actually do. I mean, he calls Field Marshal Asim Munir his favorite field marshal. So that is all those dynamics and that kind of, love story building up between United States and Pakistan. But we all know that the US's ultimate aim is to go into Pakistan, Afghanistan, looking at transactions, right? And critical minerals and, rare earth and all that. We should not be losing sight of that fact. Coming to Bagram Air Base, I think that has become an ego issue for Trump, considering the way the withdrawal had happened in such a hasty manner, which is kind of, still under investigation in the United States, whether that was too hasty and whether, those soldiers whom they lost at the Abigate incident, if that could have been avoided. And the way it was, everything was carried out at that point of time. And also the fact that the United States has also stopped giving the special immigrant visas, and there's a campaign going on inside the US on that as well. That how can you leave all those Afghans who helped you in this 20 years and leave them in lurch? Some of them had valid visas, but they were stopped from catching the aircraft to the US. So all those dynamics are playing out. Bagram, I think. It's just a messaging that Trump wants to tell, as he says, even for Operation Sindoor, that I mediated it and I did that. The other day he said, I called, during a phone call with Prime Minister Modi, I said, let's not have a war with Pakistan. So he's having that, that kind of infatuation with Pakistan. And let's just see where does it go. Having said that, I think the fact that Zalmay Khalilzad was there meeting Muttaqi, and they spoke about expansion of cooperation with the United States, between Afghanistan and United States, is again very interesting to see how that pans out. And as I always say that, we should never forget that this is all part of the great game that's still continuing. This is Afghanistan, end of the day. Nothing is permanent there. And you never know tomorrow what happens. I mean, it took the world to have a 9/11 to throw the Taliban out. and after 20 years back, you give the country back to them served on a platter, right? So it's very interesting. I don't think they are very serious about Bagram, but yes, it helps in kind of keeping both sides alive, and also keeping up tensions alive, and the fact that President Trump would not want not to have a say in this region, but I don't think he also has a very solid AFPAC plan, so to say.
I like the fact, yeah, the Zalme aspect. Though Zalme himself, I don't think has any credibility within Afghanistan, isn't it? I don't know. So let's, Akashika, shall we move to the India section? Now, the question is, now that we've got our embassy there, where do we go from here? What are the things that we can do? Akashika, if you have any ideas, which way we should take this?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. But ma'am, before we could go there, I am so glad that Miss Basu got brought up the great game, because this is also something that we were discussing earlier. And just it's perfectly fine if that is not a tangent that we want to go on. But I had a couple of things in mind, because we know of the great game in Afghanistan, and there's something we spoke about earlier. Has always been the new game looks like China versus the US. And now that we have briefly talked about the US, is do we have any comments from the panel about how does Beijing perceive this to be? Because we have also talked about in the podcast today how Taliban seems to be having sort of an independent diplomacy, which just caters to exactly who it's talking to at that given point in time. We have had Afghanistan India outreach, we have had ups and downs with Pakistan and Afghanistan. Is this anything that Beijing is going to be worried about? Does it affect the formal invite that they're given to Afghanistan just a couple of weeks back to CPEC 2.0? Is this something that they would be thinking, and how does that impact them? Brief comments from the panel would be great. Dr. Behuria?
I think, Bagram, Trump, I agree with Ms. Basu that this is all trial balloons that Trump might be floating. One doesn't know. He may be serious about it, because he thinks, by being there, he can also keep an eye on the Chinese activities in the region. And moreover, we should not also forget that great game that you talked about, that a couple of days before the attacks, you had the Moscow conference, where you had the Chinese, the Indians, the Russians, all sitting there talking about Afghanistan. And interestingly quiet, there, even India also voted in favor of, not voted in the favor of, but it didn't raise its voice when they all talked about US not having a base in Bagram there. Pakistanis were muted, so were we. So we were as muted as the Pakistanis were. But the Russians, the Afghans, and the Chinese, they were together in that camp, talking about Bagram base not to be sacrificed, not to be given away to US at all. So it was very interesting. So whether we want Bagram base to return, we have to ask ourselves. Whether Pakistan in the changed circumstances wants US there in Bagram in a different role, it is also open to question. I would imagine that Pakistanis will be happy to have Americans there now, given the kind of relationship they have with America at the moment. So it's a great game out there in that respect. And add to that, a lot of things are happening. People are talking about even $3 trillion plus of rare earth materials coming from Afghanistan, which Americans are also interested in. So this thing will come later, but at the moment the world is focusing on Ukraine. Americans are talking about the Chinese all the time, and the Chinese are trying to also expand their area of influence beyond CPEC into Afghanistan. And I would imagine that the Taliban are not averse to the idea of CPEC being extended to Afghanistan. So there are a lot of small initiatives being talked about, but nothing concrete is coming out of it all. The last time we were discussing, I was telling you that Indians should also be serious about investing in Afghanistan, because that is the way you enhance your stakes. The Chinese also want to enhance their statistics, but nobody wants to venture into Afghanistan because Afghanistan has not yet settled. We cannot treat it as a settled case yet. And moreover, we were talking about the women issue. When I personally asked Muttaqi in Delhi about the minorities and the women, he said that this is all a jhoot hai. These are a pack of lies. And he said that there are representation of the minorities there. Women are being treated well. As Muslims, we cannot allow them to study in the same school. There will be separate school, but we have nothing against women education. Blah blah blah. So they have not yet come clear on these issues, and which is perhaps coming in the way of their recognition of Taliban regime in Afghanistan today wholeheartedly by everybody around them. Even Chinese, the Pakistanis, the Indians, all of us are now have issues there. But as we proceed, as the great game unfolds, we will see perhaps a lot of issues emerging in the horizon. Pakistanis will have their TTP, Americans will have their Bagram plus rare earth, Russians will have their anxieties about Americans being there, Chinese will have their anxieties about possibility of Americans being there, and Afghanistan may come up as a strategic issue all over again.
Nayanima, do you want to comment on the China issue, or would you prefer, if we can go in, let's go in on to what should India do? What do you think, in which field do you think India should start engagement? Or you're free to answer either question.
No, sure. I'll combine both, Dr. Kartha. Is the fact that we've woken up to the fact that we need to open up our direct channels, diplomatic channels with the Taliban, is also the China factor, right? It's not just got to do with our tensions with Pakistan. Of course, that's a bigger factor, but then there's also the China factor. We are seeing how China is deeply entering there, not just in the mining sector, but also, their CPEC 2.0 or whatever they plan to do there. And the fact that when the Chinese say that they mean it, and let's just see how that pans out. As I said, that the great game always continues there. The players may change, from the Britishers to Soviet and to Americans, and now let's say, I don't know, maybe the Chinese. You never know. But coming frankly on the India-Afghanistan ties, again, I think the road ahead should be very clear. And as Dr. Behuria also said, that we need to increase our stake there, and we need to do a lot of investment in whichever way possible. We can restart our projects. We were doing such great work there. And I think we need to restart all that, of course, in a gradual manner, not in a haste, like the way we did with Muttaqi's visit, even allowing him to go to Deoband, but that's for a different day. But I guess, we need to start our projects there, start the people-to-people linkages, let the students come to India and study, let the medical tourism start, and that's when we will actually see how the dynamics are being played out. And again, I'm also kind of, supporter of the fact that we should open up all our 4 consulates that used to be there, especially the one in Kandahar and Herat, because that's where we, of course, we will not be able to do anything with the ISI influence there, but at least we had our eyes and ears on the ground, what was happening. So all our consulates, especially Mazar-e-Sharif, which was mostly for trade, and Jalalabad, Herat. So I think we need to start doing all that. That you don't have to give them a formal recognition to do all that. All you need is diplomatic skills to continue and show the world that, yes, we are ready to engage. And also, I think in today's world, again, what the mistake that India commits all the time is that we constantly, when we open up with one channel, we only focus on that channel. We should not forget on the anti-Taliban forces also that are there. They may not be inside Afghanistan. They are outside. We know where they are. I'm sure the government knows. Have a channel of communication with them also open. They are also looking up to you. Right now, they're extremely upset with India for embracing the Taliban. But so I think we need to have that communication going on also, because there are these rumors going on that Pakistan probably is having a dialogue with the NRF. And you never know, tomorrow the Chinese can open a dialogue with them. So we should also look at them. End of the day, in the last Taliban regime, we did support the NRF, right? And we also supported them through Tajikistan. So we should not forget history and take lessons from that, and also continue, in a very smart diplomatic way.
I think those are excellent
Correct.
points, Nayanima. I think, yeah, Ashok, do you wanted to say something?
I just want to
Yeah.
carry on from where Dr. Basu left. In fact, this was all coming to me again and again. NRF, it's a very interesting issue because the day our photo went viral, I received a lot of calls from people, Uzbek, Tajiks, and Hazaras, and in fact, they thought that we were making a deal with the devil. And
Mm.
the problem is that we have already made a deal, whether they like it or not. So the problem now is what kind of role we should play. One that I told you about is having deeper economic engagement. We should push our private players, push our public service undertakings, and try to be there, make our presence felt. And on the second front, I would say that the Afghans need it, the Taliban need it. They are actually worried about the economic condition there. They were talking about the dollar versus Afghan rupee exchange rate, but I would say that no, they are not integrated to the world economy at all. So this is very this is a false comparison to make. But they need us, so we should make the best of it. The second thing that we can possibly do is to bring about a real reconciliation in Afghanistan. We are capable at. We are not diplomatic pygmies. We have that thing in us. The scale is there. We need to intervene because the Uzbeks, the Tajiks, the Hazara, they trust us. And the Taliban, we can take a leap forward there. It's not a leap in the dark. It's a leap in the right sense. We can talk to these characters, these elements, and if we bring about a real reconciliation, then that would be fine. We must remember that the Pashtuns constitute only about 46 to 48% of the population. 52% of the population are non-Pashtun, and they have an issue with the Taliban regime today as we speak. And if we are trying to bring about a reconciliation in Afghanistan and bring about peace there, prosperity there, then that will go a long way in establishing our credibility in Afghanistan. We have established our credibility, as I was telling you earlier, last time, by doing what we did during the 20 years that Americans found it difficult to operate in the way they wanted to operate. So now the time has come to carry that process forward, that process of doing good to the Afghans forward, and interlock our interest with Taliban and Afghanistan in such a way that future political upheavals will insulate our relationship from that. So we have the capability, we have the required strength, but we need to exercise that strength, exercise that option. Then only I think it will be good for all of us. And last but not the least, that what I again re-emphasize, our relationship with Afghanistan and Taliban should be independent of our relationship with Pakistan. We should not be there to spite Pakistan. We should not be there because Pakistanis do not like it. So that's a temptation that we need to avoid. We should not think about Pakistan when we are building bridges with Afghanistan. That will be the real way to go about it. Thank you.
Pakistan lens. That would be asking for trouble. There's just one thing is how do you? I mean, quick questions from one, then we'll take questions from the audience. What can we do? I mean, how do we get Pakistanis to understand that a stable Afghanistan is in their interest, right? So if we sort of, I'm sure the people at the ground understand that. I mean, the people, I mean, the border, there's a potential trade, there are the people who actually do, but I mean, whatever we do will be seen as suspicious. So if we were to offer that, that okay, let the trade come through to India, which was there,
That's a
then they
very good
create,
question.
God, so much of problems. So I honestly don't know how we how to do that. But
So you
obviously,
mean to say that the Pakistanis will drag us in, no matter what we
yes,
do?
yes,
No,
and
I
I
think we have to be clever there. I think we have to avoid that. I will go to the extent of saying that now that Operation Sindoor continues, now that Pakistan has taken a beating, now that Americans have come to their rescue, and Americans are trying to show that they are very close to Pakistan, and they're stopping India from fighting another war with Pakistan. I think this is the right time that we should be uh, carrying forward some kind of dialogue with Pakistan, maybe off the radar, maybe behind the scenes. I think that will also matter, in this kind of circumstances. Pakistanis are mindless as far as India question is concerned. And the India factor keeps bothering them hell of a lot. But that will aggravate if we do not talk to them at all. So
mm,
if I were at the helm, I would suggest that we must carry forward some kind of dialogue with Pakistan. Some because this thing will continue. Pahalgam, Operation Sindoor. We had the Mumbai attack, and we thought everything is over. But then we started again. We talked. Back channel talks were on. So some kind of communication with Pakistan is important to actually assuage their suspicion vis-a-vis India. Because Pakistan will now think that we will be using Afghan territory against them. They are thinking that
yes,
we are already using. They are already saying that the Baloch rebels are fitna all Hindustan. They are already saying
yes,
the TTP, Fitna al Khawaris, is also supported by India. So that sense of anxiety and concern, I think it's paranoia more than real
absolutely.
suspicion. It is paranoia. But that paranoia can be tempered, can be moderated if we can talk, if we can exchange our views, and that will go a long way in calming down their knobs, and also creating an environment of trust where Afghanistan can stabilize, and which will be good for them, good for us, good for the region. So that is the way,
Exactly.
I think that is the way forward.
Nainima,
But
do you have that one proposal for Pakistan which will make them forget, sort of say, okay, let's do this? I mean, what I
no.
have been,
Pakistan is under the Pakistani Prime Minister in United Nations. He has said that we are ready with the composite dialogue, which they hated so much during
mm,
post Musharraf period. They said that Musharraf had thrown us to the wolves by saying that we agreed to the composite dialogue. They had sacrificed the Kashmiri cause. But here is a prime minister who goes to the United Nations and says that we are okay with composite dialogue. We are ready to start it. Let us test them out. Let them try them out. So that's nothing should come in the way, and we should not be thinking too much about it, because we are a strong nation, we are a big nation, and Operation Sindoor has proved it, that if we are given a chance, we can take on Pakistan head on. So having boosted our self-confidence, we having that thing boosted our self-confidence, the next step forward would be to try Pakistan out when they're offering us per talks. So we should not offer anything. There is an offer on the table. We just have to take it up and move on.
yeah.
Oh,
Nainima, do you
yes.
want to come in on this? Yeah.
Yes, I absolutely agree with Dr. Behuria, and I've been saying that, and I've been very unpopular for that. Is the fact that you need to have a dialogue with Pakistan, and I'll bring in the Kashmir factor here because I've been going to Kashmir and covered both the election there, and I've seen the so-called normalcy that we talk about is absolutely not there. Uh, yes, we had a good plan when we abrogated 370, but after that, the development, all that we've promised to them, especially statehood, has not happened. So there is this pent up anger there amongst the youth, and we ignore the youth
So,
factor
can I
somehow.
just, sorry, can I just come in here for a quick minute because we are running out of time? See, what I'm trying to say is, if they are frightened now of a two-front war, so what if we were to take that forward, in terms of a possible two-front, and then say, okay, if you don't want a two-front war, let's talk. So I mean, the Taliban are showing all signs that please come in, do something. No, you don't want to go in there, right? That is not that's a bad idea. But in terms of what we should do, like what Ashok says, what single thing can we offer Pakistan to say, okay, let's go on Afghanistan, let's cooperate on this, stabilizing this country.
So I think the first opening can be trade. I mean, that has always been the most contentious factor, and that's easy to achieve, I guess, more than any other thing. I mean, composite dialogue, I don't know if that will happen in my lifetime, but then trade is the easiest thing to do. Start the SARC project. You were the one who was, pioneer of SARC. There is a SAFTA, a South Asian Free Trade Agreement. I'm saying, activate all those things that are lying there, and that is something that will calm down the nerves of the Bangladeshis also. So I think that's easily achievable. At least start the project, start the trade, tell them that if you want to really cooperate and want to talk, let's just have trade first. Allow us to do trade with Afghanistan through the Pakistan territory, and let's just see how that works. If you do not talk at all, and your stance remains that terror and talks cannot go together, then I do not know where this will all end up.
Good. Akashika, can we take on some questions from the audience?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. Let's do that. We have a couple of interesting ones. Okay. We have one regular watcher, Akash Sadani. Given the historicity of the unrecognized Duran line, Pakistan has a hot western border most of the time. Sustainability of this apparent ceasefire is questionable. Views from the panel.
I think this was answered already, so we can go to the next question.
Okay, we have one by Onashua. How important is Afghanistan for India's Central Asia Connect, and how can we take it forward?
Yeah, can Ashok, you want to go for that? You're
Answer
muted. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
You're good. You're good.
I think the answer is there in the question itself. It is important for us, and we need to do everything possible to use Afghanistan as an overland transit route to access Afghanistan. But the real question is Pakistan. So I entirely agree with Dr. Basu. Trade should be the first issue that can break the ice perhaps, but the problem is Pakistanis are mindless about it. Day before yesterday there was an interesting conference in Pakistan, regional economic conference, and there the Pakistanis said that Pakistan has taken the lead for making regional trade integration possible. Then I said, तो कहते हैं ना सोच वहाँ खा के बिल्ली हज को चली. They are the ones who stopped South Asia trade. They are the ones who said no to motor vehicle agreement. If that would have been there, then trade through Afghanistan would have been a reality. So Pakistanis have this interesting duality about their claims and their assertions. So one has to, through dialogue only, you can bring reason to them that, see what you are saying, what you are doing, there is a gap between that. So you have to resolve that gap. So if Pakistanis today allow it to happen, it will be happening. But if we are taking the longer route through Chabaha, it is not materializing. We have been trying that for the last 25 years. It's not materializing. It will not materialize the way the land route will materialize. So, but the problem is India-Pakistan question, and that has to be somehow talked about, if not resolved.
Akashika, I think that question from Alia, that's pretty much the same thing. Yeah.
Cooperation with Pakistan on Afghanistan is a phenomenal idea, but what are tangible ways to get Pakistan on board? What will make them agree? I think this is also something we spoke extensively about, but any final
Can
comment?
I give an idea on this? The Afghans have done extremely well in terms of opium eradication in most areas, not entirely, but they've done a phenomenal job. Now, their methods of doing it were not entirely good because they literally, it was through total force. Can we get Pakistan, because they have a deep interest in interdicting narcotics separately from their mafia who's operating across the area? That's a different question. So can we think of an agreement with Afghanistan, Pakistan, India on interdicting narcotic shipments? Because it's a very, very serious issue. For us, it's a huge issue. It's a huge issue for Pakistan also. What do you think, Nayanima? Do you think that could work in answer to Alia?
Yes, that's a brilliant proposal, Dr. Kartha. And I think we need to really think about all this. As I said, that there has to be a short-term strategy that we need to have now that you've embraced the Taliban. And also, the Taliban makes a lot of noise on the Tapi pipeline. I think that's also somewhere that we need to get going and activate whatever we used to do. I mean, the Tapi pipeline is going to be very helpful for us now, especially when we are getting badgered on procuring the Russian oil, right? I mean, of course, this will take decades, but then why not start now? So if we don't think out of the box in an innovative manner how to integrate this region, all this will continue to happen again and again, and there will be no end to all these tensions.
You want to take Laksha's question?
Yes, ma'am. Just about that, this is something that I've been waiting to ask ever since we started the India segment, because such great points from the panel, there's no question about it. We have spoken about the kind of debate and the different viewpoints that Muttaqi's visit and all of the other things I've had in Afghanistan. At the same time, while we were reading up and everything in India as well, discourse was kind of split on how we did have Muttaqi come in and how we interacted with them and kind of the scope of engagement that India now seeks to have or wants to have with Afghanistan. The point being, and this is relating to the question that we have from the audience as well, is that how I think the best possible way for India to approach Afghanistan in this regard is to kind of balance its diplomatic outreach and strategic goals while not diluting its principled issues in terms of women's issues, in terms of terrorism, in terms of democratic representation, which is something that we have Lakshay come in and say, how can India justify its strategic engagement with the Taliban given the humanitarian hurdles? Entertaining a terrorist government in India is a bit absurd, although strategically important. This may land me up in a little bit of trouble, but I think it's still a very valid domestic discourse that we've been having ever since we've had the visit. Comments from the panel.
I think it's a very genuine question to ask. Very genuine question to ask, the ethical question to ask. But the states do not behave ideologically at all. They behave realistically. So the realism demands that we need to talk to the powers that be in Kabul. And we are doing that. There were people, I remember at one point of time when Ziaul Haq was at the helm of affairs in Pakistan, S.K. Singh, who used to be our High Commissioner in Islamabad, he used to tell me, Ashok, we are, by not talking to Ziaul Haq, we are committing a blunder. Here is somebody who can deliver, but we are not doing it. But interestingly, because he was in power, like in Kabul, Taliban are in power, and it will be unwise and unrealistic of us not to recognize that. But having said that, what I was telling, that we need to recognize this, that 52% of the Afghan people are not represented by Taliban. So we need to factor that in and try to work out a plan whereby we can perhaps bring different communities together. So that should take us forward. Talking to Taliban, who were a proscribed organization, who have humanitarian problems, problems in terms of humanitarian issues that is plaguing Afghanistan today, it is one thing. But not recognizing them, not engaging them will be, I would say, diplomatically unwise. You see, we have done it with Myanmar. The Myanmar, the junta was not humanitarian at all. They were also doing all kinds of humanitarian abuses, human rights abuses. But we kept our communication line open with them, for which Americans did not trust us, did not like us at that point of time. But later on, they came around and said that perhaps Indian way of dealing with the junta was fine. So I would say in real politics, there is no room for isolation. We should be connecting with them. We should be communicating with them.
I think Nayanima will completely agree that with this point, but nonetheless, Nayanima, my own view, just one line, is that if you want to change the Taliban, you have to go in. Otherwise, you can do nothing. That's what I've told a bunch of Afghan women. Listen, we understand what your pain is. But if you want us to help you, we have to be there on the ground. Otherwise, there's nothing we can do. Nayanima, your views.
Absolutely, Dr. Kartha. I cannot agree with you more, and also with Dr. Behuria, is the fact that if you isolate them, you will never be able to get from Afghanistan what you want. There are strategic advantages also that we have in that region. And also the fact that honestly, today in the neighborhood, India is having a very, very troubled neighborhood. And we saw who all came for our help during Operation Sindhu. We are kind of alone, so to say. Today, Bangladesh doesn't like you. Sri Lanka just, it's a love-hate relationship. Nepal, Bhutan, let us not go into that. But then, so if you keep alienating your neighbors, it is never going to help you. And this is the geography we live in. We have to accept. Also, the fact that today they have full control of Afghanistan, tomorrow they may not have, but that doesn't mean we will not talk to them. Again, from 1996 to 2001, today the world has changed a lot. I mean, who would have thought that today there will be a President Trump, giving a 150% tariff whip on China or a 50% on India after all that we did in terms of being a major defense partner and all that. So we have to understand the changed realities, the fact that today dialogue is the only way out. You cannot always talk about war, and I'm very much against it. Military aggression, yes, is fine when it is needed, but that cannot be your solution. That cannot be your statecraft, right? So open a dialogue channel, of course, deal with Afghanistan, because again, we are forgetting from very humanitarian aspect that they are now in abject poverty. The economy in Afghanistan has collapsed. There are many young traders, students, the youth there is looking up to India to do something for them. Who sort of dreamt of an American way of life, and the Americans kind of backstabbed and left, right? So I think we can take that moral high ground there and also work for them, start our projects, generate jobs in whichever way. I'm sure we have all that diplomatic skills. We need to put that into work. And ideologically, yes, we can keep pushing the Taliban for an inclusive government, opening up
Yes.
women education, tell them that, draw the lesson at least from the women's so-called press conference, where you said that there is no difference, where you said that Afghanistan mein aman hai. So, stand up to your word. And that is the deal that you signed even with the Americans. So we can make them more accountable once we talk to them. If we don't talk to them, there will be no dialogue, and we'll be then
True.
only talking through social media, Twitter, this, that, which will never help. So that's what.
Absolutely. Okay, we'll have to wrap up. Akashika, can you just give the last few comments and
Absolutely,
wrap
ma'am,
up?
absolutely. It was, we have a shout out from Alia. I am incredible panel, and I totally agree. Thank you so much. It was a brilliant panel, and there's so much more to talk about, and I'm sure we will be meeting again very soon. But all that's left for me is to once again thank you. Thank you so much to the audience for your questions. Thank you to all of our panelists for your time and brilliant views. And we hope to see you very soon once again. Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.